Maya Rodriguez had been awake for 16 hours straight. Her scrubs were wrinkled. Her dark hair was falling out of its ponytail, and all she wanted was to get home, take a hot shower, and sleep for about 12 hours. The double shift at County General had been brutal. 3 car accidents, 2 heart attacks, and 1 very angry man who'd superglued his fingers together, trying to fix a broken mug. That last one had almost made her laugh, but she was too tired even for that. The mountain road stretched ahead of her, dark and winding. Her old truck's headlights cut through the February darkness, illuminating snow-covered pine trees on both sides. She'd moved to this remote area 3 years ago, looking for peace and quiet. Most people thought she was crazy for choosing to live so far from everything, but that was exactly what she needed. No noise, no crowds, no reminders. The snow had started falling about 20 minutes ago. Not heavy yet, but enough to make the road slick. Maya knew these mountain passes well enough by now. She'd driven them in all kinds of weather. Still, she eased off the gas pedal a bit, being careful around the curves. The last thing she needed was to slide off into a ditch after the day she'd had. That's when she saw it. Something dark on the side of the road just past the next bend. At first, she thought it might be a deer. They wandered onto the road all the time up here, especially at night. But as her headlights got closer, her tired brain started putting the pieces together. That wasn't a deer. That was a person. No, 2 people. One lying on the ground, one kneeling beside them. Maya's foot hit the brake without her even thinking about it. Her medical training kicked in, overriding her exhaustion. She pulled the truck onto the shoulder, threw it into park, and grabbed the emergency medical kit she always kept behind the seat. Her hands were already reaching for her phone, but when she looked at the screen, her heart sank. No signal, of course not. This far up the mountain, cell service was more of a suggestion than a reality. She jumped out of the truck and the cold hit her like a wall. The wind was picking up and the snow was falling harder now. She could barely see 10 feet in front of her. As she got closer, she could make out more details. A man was lying on his back on the frozen ground, his face pale even in the dim light. Next to him was a boy, maybe 8 or 9 years old, wearing a coat that was too thin for this weather. The kid was shaking, and not just from the cold. "Hey, I'm a nurse," Maya called out as she approached, keeping her voice calm and steady. "What happened here?" The boy looked up at her, and she could see the fear in his eyes. Tears had left frozen tracks down his cheeks. "My dad fell," he said, his voice small and trembling. "We were hunting, and he fell down the rocks. He's bleeding real bad, and I couldn't get him back to the truck. Our truck is way back on the logging road, and I couldn't carry him, and nobody's come by, and I don't know what to do." Maya dropped to her knees beside the man, her medical kit already open. She could see blood soaked through his heavy jacket on the right side. His breathing was shallow but steady. His eyes were closed, but when she touched his shoulder, they fluttered open for a moment. "Sir, can you hear me?" she asked, leaning closer. "I'm Maya, I'm a nurse. I'm going to help you." The man's eyes tried to focus on her face. His lips moved, but no sound came out at first. Then barely a whisper. "Tommy, is Tommy okay?" "I'm here, Dad," the boy said quickly, grabbing his father's hand. "I'm okay. This lady's going to help us." Maya was already assessing the injuries. The bleeding was coming from his right side, probably a deep laceration from the fall. His left leg was bent at an odd angle, possible fracture. His pupils responded to her pen light, which was good, but he was definitely going into shock. His skin was cold and clammy, his pulse too fast and too weak. She looked around, trying to think. The nearest hospital was almost 2 hours away on a good day. In this weather, with the roads getting worse by the minute, it could be 3 or 4 hours, maybe more. And that was if she could even get a signal to call for help. Her truck had 4-wheel drive, but even that had limits on ice-covered mountain roads. Then she looked at the boy, at Tommy. He was shivering so hard his teeth were chattering. His lips had a bluish tint to them. His thin coat was soaked through from the snow. He'd probably been out here for an hour or more, trying to keep his father warm with his own body heat. Another hour in this weather and they'd both be in serious trouble. Maya made a decision. It might not be the right one, but it was the only one that made sense. Her cabin was only about 15 minutes back down the mountain. It was warm, it had supplies, and she could stabilize the man there while she figured out what to do next. Trying to drive them to the hospital in this storm was just asking for all 3 of them to end up in a ditch. "Okay, listen to me," she said, looking at Tommy. "I'm going to get your dad into my truck, and we're going to go to my house. It's close by and it's warm. Can you help me?" Tommy nodded quickly, wiping his nose with the back of his hand. I can help. I'm strong. The boy wasn't strong, not really. He was skinny and exhausted and probably hadn't eaten in hours. But Maya saw the determination in his face and she knew better than to argue. I know you are, she said. You've been taking care of your dad all this time. You've done great. Getting the man into the truck was harder than she expected. He was tall, probably over 6 feet and solidly built. Dead weight was always heavier than it looked. Maya had to half drag, half carry him while Tommy pushed from behind. The man groaned in pain a few times but didn't fully wake up. That was probably for the best. They got him into the back seat, laying him down as carefully as possible. Maya packed her spare blankets around him, trying to keep him warm and stable. Tommy climbed in beside his father, holding his hand and talking to him in a quiet voice. It's okay, Dad, we're going somewhere warm. You're going to be okay. Maya wished she could promise that, but she'd been a nurse too long to make promises she couldn't keep. Instead, she just got behind the wheel and started the truck. The drive back down the mountain felt like it took forever. Every bump in the road made her wince thinking about the man's injuries. The snow was coming down in sheets now and her windshield wipers could barely keep up. Tommy kept talking to his father the whole way. Maya listened, learning bits and pieces about them. They lived in a cabin somewhere up in the mountains. Just the two of them. They hunted for meat, grew vegetables in the summer, kept to themselves mostly. The boy's voice was matter-of-fact when he talked about it, like it was the most normal thing in the world to live that way. What's your dad's name? Maya asked, trying to keep the boy talking, keeping him focused on something other than his fear. Jack, Tommy said. Jack Thornton. And I'm Tommy Thornton. We've lived up here for 2 years since... He stopped, his voice trailing off. Maya didn't push. Whatever had brought them to the mountains, it was their story to tell when they were ready. She just focused on driving, on getting them home safely. When they finally pulled up to her cabin, relief flooded through her. The small wooden structure looked warm and welcoming with its porch light glowing in the storm. It wasn't much, just 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, and a living room with a wood stove, but right now it looked like heaven. Getting Jack inside was another struggle. Maya's arms were shaking by the time they got him onto her bed. She'd worry about where she'd sleep later. Right now all that mattered was taking care of this man and his son. She turned up the heat and got to work. Tommy stood in the doorway, watching with wide eyes as she cut away his father's jacket and shirt. The wound on his side was deep but clean. The fall must have been onto sharp rocks. She cleaned it, applied pressure to stop the bleeding, and started stitching it closed. Her hands moved on autopilot, doing what they'd been trained to do hundreds of times before. Jack drifted in and out of consciousness while she worked. Sometimes he'd moan in pain. Once he grabbed her wrist with surprising strength, his eyes wild and unfocused. Where's Tommy? He gasped out. I'm right here, Dad, Tommy said quickly, moving closer. Right here. I'm safe. Jack's grip relaxed and his eyes closed again. Maya finished the stitches and moved on to his leg. It was broken, no doubt about that, but it was a clean break. She could set it and splint it here. He'd need proper x-rays and a cast eventually, but this would hold for now. The whole time she worked, Tommy watched. He didn't cry or complain or get in the way. He just stood there, this small boy trying so hard to be brave. When Maya finally finished and covered his father with warm blankets, she turned her attention to Tommy. Your turn, she said gently. Let me look at you. I'm fine, Tommy said automatically, but he was still shivering. Humor me, Maya said. I'm a nurse. We're bossy about these things. That got a tiny smile from him. She checked him over quickly. No injuries, just cold and exhausted and scared out of his mind. She wrapped him in a blanket and led him to the kitchen. When did you eat last? She asked. Tommy thought about it. Breakfast, I think. Dad packed sandwiches for our hunt, but they're still in the truck. Breakfast. That had been at least 12 hours ago. Maya pulled out bread, cheese, and some leftover chicken from her fridge. Within minutes, she'd made him a sandwich and poured him a glass of milk. Tommy ate like he was starving, which he probably was. While he ate, Maya went back to check on Jack. His color was better now that he was warm and had an IV running into his arm, replacing the fluids he'd lost. His pulse was stronger. She cleaned and bandaged his other cuts and scrapes, the minor injuries she hadn't had time to deal with before. That's when she noticed his hands. They were rough and calloused, the hands of someone who worked hard with them every day. There was dirt under his fingernails, old scars across his knuckles. But what caught her attention was his left hand. He wore a simple gold wedding band on his ring finger. Maya felt something twist in her chest. Of course he was married. A man and his son living alone in the mountains. That meant there was a woman somewhere, probably worried sick about them. Maybe she was back at their cabin, waiting for them to come home from their hunting trip, or maybe she was away somewhere, and they'd been taking care of things while she was gone. She went back to the kitchen. Tommy had finished his sandwich and was fighting to keep his eyes open. The warmth and the food and the relief were all catching up with him at once. "Tommy," Maya said softly, "is your mom waiting for you at home? Should we try to get a message to her somehow?" The boy's face changed. All the brave determination drained out of it, leaving behind something raw and painful. "My mom's dead," he said quietly. "It's just me and Dad now." Maya felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. "I'm so sorry," she said, and she meant it. "I didn't know." Tommy nodded, staring down at his empty plate. "It happened 2 years ago. Car accident. That's why we moved up to the mountains. Dad said he needed to get away from everything for a while. He said the mountains were peaceful. 2 years. This boy had lost his mother 2 years ago, and had been living in isolation with his grieving father ever since." Maya's heart broke for both of them. She understood that kind of pain, that desperate need to escape from a world that had hurt you. That's why she was here too, wasn't it? Hiding in the mountains from her own ghosts. "You must miss her a lot," Maya said. "Every day," Tommy said. Then he looked up at her and his eyes were full of something that looked like hope. "But Dad says the pain gets a little smaller every day. He says we're going to be okay eventually. We just need time." Maya had to turn away for a moment, blinking back unexpected tears. This kid, this brave little kid who'd spent hours in a freezing storm trying to save his father, still had hope. Still believed things would get better. When was the last time she'd felt that way? "Your dad's right," she said, turning back to face him. "You will be okay. And right now he's going to be okay too. He's stable, he's warm, and he just needs to rest. You should get some sleep too. You've had a really long day." Tommy looked reluctant. "I should stay with Dad." "You can," Maya said. "There's a chair in the bedroom. You can sleep in it right next to him. That way you'll be there if he wakes up." That seemed to satisfy him. Maya got him settled in the chair with pillows and blankets, making him as comfortable as possible. Within minutes, the boy was asleep, his hand resting on his father's arm even in sleep. Maya stood in the doorway for a long moment, looking at them. A father and son, survivors of something terrible, trying to build a new life in the mountains, and now they were here in her home, depending on her to take care of them. She thought about calling for help, but when she checked her phone again, there was still no signal. The storm must have knocked out a cell tower somewhere. Even her landline was dead, probably a line down somewhere up the mountain. They were completely cut off until the storm passed. Maya went to her living room and collapsed onto the couch. Her whole body ached from exhaustion and from hauling a full-grown man around. She should sleep, but her mind was racing. She kept thinking about Tommy's words. Car accident. 2 years ago. 2 years ago, Maya had still been working in the city at a different hospital. She'd been an ER nurse there, dealing with trauma cases every day. And 2 years ago, there had been an accident. A bad one. Multiple cars, bad weather, twisted metal, and broken glass. She'd been one of the first responders, working frantically to save whoever she could. But not everyone could be saved. She'd lost people that day. She always lost people. That was part of the job, part of being a nurse. You couldn't save everyone. But sometimes the losses hit harder than others. Sometimes they stayed with you, haunting you long after you'd clocked out and gone home. Was it the same accident? It couldn't be. Car accidents happened every day. The odds of this being the same one were astronomically small. It was just a coincidence, her tired brain making connections that weren't there. But still, she couldn't shake the feeling that fate had just dropped something significant into her lap. This man and his boy showing up on this road on this night when she happened to be driving by. What were the chances? Maya shook her head, trying to clear it. She was overthinking this. She was exhausted and emotional and seeing patterns where there were none. The important thing was that she'd found them in time, that they were safe now, that they'd be okay. From the bedroom, she heard a sound. A low moan, words that didn't quite make sense. Jack was dreaming or maybe having a nightmare. Maya got up to check on him, but by the time she reached the bedroom, he'd quieted down again. Tommy hadn't even stirred. She stood there in the darkness, listening to them breathe. The storm howled outside, rattling the windows. Snow piled up against the glass. Inside, the cabin was warm and quiet and safe. Maya went back to the couch and finally let herself close her eyes. Tomorrow, she'd figure out how to get them proper medical care. Tomorrow, she'd worry about getting them back to their own cabin, back to their lives. Tomorrow, she'd deal with whatever came next. But tonight, they were all just survivors of the storm, sheltering together until morning came. Maya woke up to sunlight streaming through her living room windows. For a moment, she forgot where she was and why her back hurt so much. Then it all came rushing back. The storm, the man and boy on the road, Jack and Tommy. She sat up quickly, wincing at the stiffness in her muscles. The clock on the wall said it was almost 9 in the morning. She'd slept for about 4 hours, which was more than she expected, but less than she needed. The cabin was quiet except for the crackling of the wood stove that had burned down to embers during the night. Maya got up and added more wood to the stove, then headed to the bedroom to check on her unexpected guests. Jack was still sleeping, his breathing deep and regular. That was good. His body needed rest to heal. Tommy was curled up in the chair, wrapped in blankets like a cocoon. The kid hadn't moved all night. She checked Jack's vital signs carefully. His pulse was strong and steady now. His temperature was normal. The IV bag was almost empty, so she replaced it with a fresh one. When she peeled back the bandage on his side to check the wound, it looked clean with no signs of infection. Her stitches had held. She allowed herself a small moment of satisfaction. She'd done good work under pressure. As she was rebandaging the wound, Jack's eyes opened. They were green, she noticed. A deep forest green that seemed to see right through her. For a moment, he just stared at her, confused and disoriented. Then his gaze darted around the room, panic starting to build in his expression. "Tommy?" he tried to say, but his voice came out as a croak. "He's right here," Maya said softly, pointing to the chair. "He's fine. He's sleeping." Jack's eyes found his son and the tension drained out of him. He closed his eyes again, taking a shaky breath. "Where are we?" "My cabin. I'm Maya. I found you and Tommy on the road last night during the storm. You were hurt pretty badly. Do you remember what happened?" Jack was quiet for a moment, clearly trying to piece together his memories. "We were hunting. Up on the ridge near Copper Falls. I was tracking a deer, wasn't watching my footing. Stepped on loose rocks and went over the edge. Must have fallen 20 feet or more. You're lucky you didn't break your neck," Maya said. "You've got a deep laceration on your right side, bruised ribs, and a broken left leg, plus various cuts and scrapes. You're going to be sore for a while." Jack tried to sit up, but Maya put a hand on his shoulder. "Don't, you need to stay still. Your leg is splinted, but it needs proper medical attention. I'm a nurse, but this isn't a hospital. I did what I could with what I had." "I need to get Tommy home," Jack said. But even as he said it, he winced in pain. "You're not going anywhere for at least a few days," Maya said firmly. "The storm knocked out phone lines and cell service. Roads are probably still a mess. And even if they weren't, you're in no condition to travel. You lost a lot of blood. Your body needs time to recover." Jack looked like he wanted to argue, but then Tommy stirred in the chair. The boy's eyes opened, and when he saw his father awake, his whole face lit up. "Dad, you're okay." "Hey, buddy," Jack said, his voice softening. "Come here." Tommy scrambled out of the chair and carefully climbed onto the bed, mindful of his father's injuries. He pressed against Jack's good side, and Jack wrapped his arm around him. "You did real good yesterday," Jack said quietly. "I'm proud of you." "I was so scared," Tommy admitted, his voice muffled against his father's shoulder. "I thought you were going to die like Mom did." Maya saw Jack's face change at those words. Pain flickered across it. A different kind of pain than what came from broken bones and torn skin. "I'm not going anywhere," he said, holding his son tighter. "I promise." Maya slipped out of the room to give them privacy. She went to the kitchen and started making breakfast. Coffee first, strong and black. Then pancakes, bacon, and eggs. She cooked more than she normally would, figuring they'd all need the fuel. While she cooked, she thought about what Tommy had said. "He thought you were going to die like Mom did." The boy had been there when his mother died. Or at least he knew the details. That kind of trauma didn't just go away. No wonder Jack had brought them up to the mountains, away from everything. He was trying to protect his son from more pain, trying to create a safe little world where nothing bad could touch them. Maya understood that impulse better than she wanted to admit. Wasn't that exactly what she'd done? Run away to the mountains, built walls around herself, kept everyone at arm's length? She'd told herself it was about finding peace, but really, she'd just been hiding. She was pulling the bacon out of the pan when Tommy appeared in the kitchen doorway. He'd put his shoes on, and his hair was sticking up in about 7 different directions. "That smells really good," he said shyly. "Hungry?" Maya asked, already knowing the answer. "Starving," Tommy admitted. "Can I help?" "Sure, you can set the table. Plates are in that cabinet, forks and knives in the drawer." Tommy set to work with careful concentration, placing everything just so. Maya watched him out of the corner of her eye. He was a good kid, polite and thoughtful. Someone had raised him right even in the midst of tragedy. "How's your dad feeling?" she asked. "He says he's fine, but I think he's lying," Tommy said matter-of-factly. "He always says he's fine even when he's not. He doesn't like people to worry about him." "Well, that's too bad," Maya said, "because I'm a nurse and worrying about people is literally my job. He's going to have to deal with it." That made Tommy smile. "Good, maybe he'll actually listen to you." "He doesn't listen to me very much." "I bet he listens to you more than you think," Maya said. She loaded up a tray with food and coffee. "Want to help me bring this to him?" They carried breakfast into the bedroom. Jack was sitting up now, propped against the pillows, looking pale but alert. His eyes widened when he saw the food. "You didn't have to do all this." "Yes, I did," Maya said. "You need to eat to get your strength back." "Doctor's orders." "Well, nurse's orders, but same thing." Jack looked like he wanted to protest, but his stomach betrayed him with a loud growl. Tommy laughed, and even Jack cracked a small smile. "Okay, you win." They ate together, an odd little group thrown together by circumstance. Maya sat in the chair Tommy had slept in, balancing her plate on her lap. Tommy sat cross-legged at the foot of the bed, careful not to jostle his father's broken leg. Jack ate slowly, like every movement hurt, but he cleaned his plate. "This is really good," Tommy said around a mouthful of pancake. "We mostly eat venison and beans and stuff. Dad's not much of a cook." "Hey," Jack protested weakly. "My beans are fine." "They're okay," Tommy said diplomatically. "But they're not pancakes." Maya found herself smiling despite everything. There was something sweet about watching them together, this father and son who only had each other. They'd built their own little language, their own rhythms. They knew how to take care of each other. After breakfast, Maya shooed Tommy out to take a shower. The kid had been wearing the same clothes for more than a day, and he smelled like wood smoke and dried sweat. While he was gone, she changed Jack's bandages again and checked his leg. Everything looked good considering. "Thank you," Jack said quietly as she worked. "For everything. Stopping last night, bringing us here, taking care of us. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't come along." "You don't need to thank me," Maya said. "Anyone would have done the same thing." "No," Jack said. "They wouldn't have. Most people would have driven right past. Too much trouble, too much risk. But you stopped. You helped us. That means something." Maya didn't know what to say to that, so she just focused on her work. But Jack wasn't done talking. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Why do you live all the way out here by yourself? Tommy told me you said you moved here a few years ago. That's a big change coming to the mountains alone." Maya's hands paused for just a second. "I needed a fresh start," she said carefully. "Sometimes you just need to get away from everything, you know? Clear your head." "Yeah," Jack said. "I know exactly what you mean." They were quiet for a moment, and Maya had the strange feeling that they understood each other in a way that didn't require words. They were both running from something. They were both trying to heal from wounds that weren't physical. "How did it happen?" Maya asked before she could stop herself. "Your wife. Tommy mentioned it was a car accident." Jack's whole body tensed. For a moment she thought he wasn't going to answer. Then he started talking, his voice flat and distant like he was reciting facts that had happened to someone else. "It was February 2 years ago. Roads were icy. Rachel had taken Tommy to visit her parents for the weekend. I was supposed to go with them, but I had to work. They were coming home when it happened. Multi-car pileup on the interstate. Some guy in a semi lost control, jackknifed across 3 lanes. Rachel's car got caught in it." Maya felt her blood turn cold. "February 2 years ago. Multi-car pileup." Her hands started shaking and she had to put down the bandage she was holding. "Tommy was in the back seat," Jack continued, not noticing her reaction. "He had his seatbelt on, was in his booster seat. He made it out with just some cuts and bruises. But Rachel was in the driver's seat. The truck hit her side of the car. She died at the scene. The room started spinning. Maya sat down hard in the chair. her breath coming in short gasps. It couldn't be. It wasn't possible. The universe couldn't be that cruel, that specific, but she remembered that day like it was yesterday. She'd been driving home from work, had come up on the accident just minutes after it happened. She'd stopped, grabbed her medical bag and run into the chaos. So many injured people, so much blood and screaming and twisted metal. She'd worked on a woman trapped in a sedan, tried everything she could to save her, but the injuries were too severe. The woman had died despite everything Maya had done, and there had been a child in that car. A little boy in the back seat crying for his mother. Emergency responders had pulled him out, taken him to safety while Maya kept working on the woman, refusing to give up even when she knew it was hopeless. "Maya?" Jack's voice seemed to come from far away. "Are you okay? You look like you're going to pass out." She couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Her hands were shaking so badly she had to press them together to make them stop. "What was your wife's name?" she whispered. "Rachel," Jack said, confused. "Rachel Thornton." Why Rachel? The paramedics had been calling her Rachel. Maya had forgotten that detail, buried it along with all the others from that terrible day, but now it came flooding back. Rachel Thornton. A woman with dark hair and a kind face, wearing a wedding ring and a necklace with a small photograph. A woman who died while Maya held her hand, whispering that help was coming, that she was going to be okay. Lies meant to comfort in those final moments. "I was there," Maya heard herself say. "I was there that day. I'm a nurse. I stopped at the accident. I tried to save her. I tried so hard, but I couldn't. There was too much damage, too much internal bleeding. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." The words tumbled out of her in a rush, tears streaming down her face. She couldn't look at Jack, couldn't bear to see his reaction. She'd failed to save his wife. She'd held Rachel's hand while she died, and now 2 years later, fate had brought the widower and his son to her door. The universe had a terrible sense of humor. Jack was staring at her, his face unreadable. The silence stretched between them, heavy and suffocating. Then finally he spoke. "You were there?" Maya nodded, still unable to meet his eyes. "I remember the little boy in the back seat, Tommy. He was crying for his mother. I wanted to go to him to tell him she was going to be okay, but I couldn't leave her. And then she was gone, and the paramedics took him, and I never knew what happened to either of you after that. I think about that day all the time. I think about all the people I couldn't save." "Is that why you're here?" Jack asked quietly. "In the mountains?" "Partly," Maya admitted. "That accident, it wasn't the first time I'd lost someone, but it was one of the worst. I started having nightmares, panic attacks at work. I'd see a car accident and just freeze up. My supervisor suggested I take some time off, maybe talk to someone. Instead, I quit. Packed up everything and moved out here where I didn't have to see reminders everywhere." She finally looked up at him, expecting anger or accusation. Instead, she saw something that looked like understanding. "So we're both running," Jack said. "I guess we are," Maya said. Tommy's voice called from the other room. "Maya, I can't figure out how to work your shower. The knobs are weird." Maya wiped her eyes quickly and stood up. "I should go help him." "Maya," Jack said, and she stopped. "It wasn't your fault. You know that, right? You tried to save her. That's more than most people would have done. You didn't cause the accident. You didn't make the roads icy. You didn't make that truck lose control. You were just someone who stopped to help." She wanted to believe him. She wanted so badly to believe that she'd done enough, that trying had been sufficient, but the guilt was so deep, so much a part of her now that she couldn't let it go. "I'll go help Tommy with the shower," she said instead of answering. She left the room and found Tommy standing in the bathroom doorway, looking confused. She showed him how the shower worked, how to adjust the temperature where the towels were. Normal, simple things that helped ground her back in reality. While Tommy showered, Maya stood in the hallway, leaning against the wall, trying to process everything. She'd spent 2 years wondering about the little boy from that accident, hoping he was okay, that he'd found some kind of peace after losing his mother so traumatically, and now he was here in her cabin, sleeping in her chair and eating her pancakes. And his father, the man whose wife had died while Maya knelt beside her on a frozen highway, was in her bed, depending on her to take care of him. It was too much. It was too strange to be coincidence. What were the odds of this happening? Of Jack and Tommy being the exact people from that day, of them ending up injured on this specific mountain road, of Maya being the one to find them. She heard movement from the bedroom and went to check on Jack. He was trying to get out of bed, his face twisted in pain. "What are you doing?" she asked, rushing over to him. "Need to use the bathroom," he said through gritted teeth. "I can manage." "You can't put weight on that leg," Maya said. "Let me help you." He looked like he wanted to argue, but the pain won out. Between the two of them, they got him to the bathroom. It was awkward and uncomfortable for both of them, but they managed. When they got him back to bed, he was sweating and pale from the effort. "You need to rest," Maya said firmly. "No more trying to do things on your own. You're going to hurt yourself worse." "I don't like being helpless," Jack said. "Nobody does," Maya replied. "But sometimes we don't have a choice. Sometimes we just have to accept help and trust that things will work out." She realized as she said it that she was talking to herself as much as to him. Neither of them was very good at accepting help or trusting others. They'd both built walls around themselves, isolated themselves from the world. And now here they were, forced together by circumstances beyond their control, having to rely on each other whether they liked it or not. Tommy emerged from the bathroom, hair wet and face scrubbed clean. He looked younger somehow, more vulnerable. "Can I borrow some clothes?" he asked. "Mine are kind of gross." Maya found an old sweatshirt and sweatpants that were way too big for him, but he rolled up the sleeves and legs and made it work. He looked like a kid playing dress-up, swimming in fabric. It made her smile despite everything. The rest of the day passed in a strange sort of domestic routine. Maya checked Jack's vitals every few hours, changed his bandages, made sure he took the antibiotics from her medical kit. Tommy helped her cook lunch, asking a million questions about everything. The kid was curious about the world in a way that suggested he didn't get out much. He wanted to know about her job at the hospital, about the town down the mountain, about what it was like to live alone. Jack mostly slept, his body working hard to heal. When he was awake, he watched Maya and Tommy with an expression she couldn't quite read. Sometimes it looked like sadness, sometimes like gratitude, sometimes like he was seeing something he'd forgotten existed. As evening approached and Maya started making dinner, she realized something had shifted. These weren't just strangers she'd rescued anymore. They were becoming something else. Something that felt dangerously close to connection. The second day started with unexpected sunlight. Maya woke up on the couch again, her back protesting another night of sleeping in an awkward position. She could hear voices from the bedroom. Quiet conversation. Jack's low rumble and Tommy's higher pitch mixing together. They were talking about something, but she couldn't make out the words. She gave them their privacy and went to make coffee. While it brewed, she tried her phone again. Still no signal. The landline was still dead, too. They were stuck here together, cut off from the outside world until the phone company fixed whatever the storm had damaged. Part of her was relieved. It gave her an excuse not to deal with what came next. Not to face the questions about why she'd brought two strangers home instead of getting them proper medical care. Not to explain the impossible connection between her and this family. Jack was doing better physically. When she checked on him after breakfast, his color was good and his eyes were clear. The fever she'd been worried about never materialized. His body was healing the way it should, but there was something different in the way he looked at her now. Like he was trying to figure out a puzzle that didn't quite fit together. "How are you feeling?" she asked, going through the routine of checking his vitals. "Sore," he admitted, "but better. The pain's not as sharp as it was yesterday. That's good. Your body's healing. You're lucky considering how far you fell." She finished checking his bandages and started to leave, but Jack stopped her. "Can we talk?" he asked. "About yesterday. About what you told me." Maya's stomach clenched. She'd been dreading this conversation. "What do you want to know?" "Everything," Jack said. "I need to understand what happened that day. The police told me some things, the accident report gave me the basic facts, but I never got the full picture. They said some people stopped to help before the ambulances arrived. Was that you?" Maya sat down in the chair, her hands gripping the armrests. "I was driving home from work. I saw the accident happen right in front of me. The truck jackknifed, cars started piling up. I pulled over and ran to help. There were so many people hurt. Other drivers were calling 911, trying to direct traffic. I went to the worst cases first, the ones who needed immediate help." "Rachel's car?" Jack said quietly. "Yes." The driver's side was crushed. I could see right away it was bad. But she was conscious at first. She was trying to turn around, trying to see Tommy in the back seat. He was screaming for her. I told her the baby was okay, that someone was getting him out safely. I told her to stay still, that help was coming. Maya's voice cracked. She hadn't talked about this with anyone. Not her supervisor, not a therapist, not a single person in the 2 years since it happened. The words felt like broken glass coming out of her throat. She knew she was dying, Maya continued. I could see it in her eyes. She wasn't scared for herself. She was scared for Tommy. She kept asking me to take care of him, to make sure he was okay. I promised I would. I promised her I'd make sure he got to his family safely. Jack's jaw tightened. Did she say anything else? She said to tell you she was sorry, that she loved you both, that she didn't want to leave you. Maya wiped her eyes, and then she was gone. I kept trying to resuscitate her until the paramedics arrived, but I knew it was too late. There was too much internal damage. The room was silent except for the sound of the wind outside. Jack stared at the ceiling, his face unreadable. Maya braced herself for anger, for blame, for him to tell her she should have done more, tried harder, saved his wife somehow. Instead, he said, "Thank you for being there. Thank you for staying with her so she wasn't alone. That means more than you know." Maya looked at him in surprise. "You're not angry?" "Angry?" Jack shook his head. "Why would I be angry at you? You tried to save her. You held her hand. You made promises to a dying woman and then beat yourself up for 2 years because you couldn't keep them. If anything, I should be apologizing to you for the burden she put on you." "It wasn't a burden," Maya said quickly. "I wanted to help. I just wish I could have done more." "You did everything you could," Jack said firmly. "I've read the accident report 100 times. I've gone over every detail, trying to find something, anything that could have changed the outcome. But there wasn't anything. The injuries were too severe. Even if it had happened right in front of a hospital, they couldn't have saved her. That's what the doctors told me. That's what the evidence shows. So please stop carrying that guilt. You don't deserve it." Maya wanted to believe him. She wanted to let go of the weight she'd been carrying. But guilt was a stubborn thing. It didn't care about logic or facts. It just sat there in your chest, heavy and cold, reminding you of everything you couldn't fix. "I keep thinking about Tommy," she said. "I promised her I'd make sure he was okay. But I never followed up. I never checked on him. I just ran away to the mountains and tried to forget the whole thing." "Tommy's okay," Jack said. "Or he's getting there. We both are, slowly. It's been hard, I won't lie. The first year was hell. I could barely function. My parents wanted me to move back home, let them help raise Tommy. But I couldn't do it. Couldn't stand being around people who kept telling me to move on, to start dating again, to get back to normal. There was no normal anymore. So you came up here," Maya said. "So I came up here," Jack agreed. "Bought a piece of land, built a cabin with my own hands. Taught myself to hunt and fish and live off the grid. Taught Tommy to do the same. We homeschool up here. It's just us and the mountains and the quiet. It's not perfect, but it's what we need right now. Doesn't Tommy need other kids his age? School friends, normal stuff?" Jack's face darkened. "What's normal?" "Having kids at school ask him every day where his mom is. Having teachers look at him with pity. Having playdates where other mothers are there and Tommy has to be reminded constantly of what he lost. No, thank you. He's better off up here where he doesn't have to explain himself to anyone." Maya heard the defensiveness in his voice and recognized it. She'd made the same arguments to herself when she'd moved to the mountains. Isolation was safer, easier. You couldn't get hurt if you didn't let anyone close. But she also heard something else in Jack's words. Fear. He was afraid of the world hurting his son again. So he'd built walls around both of them, called it protection, and convinced himself it was enough. Before she could respond, Tommy appeared in the doorway. "Can we go outside?" he asked. "I want to show Dad the deer tracks I saw this morning." "Your dad needs to stay in bed," Maya said gently. "I know," Tommy said. "But can I go outside? Just for a little bit?" Maya looked at the boy's hopeful face and couldn't say no. "Sure, bundle up. It's cold out there." Tommy ran off to find his coat. Jack watched him go with a small smile. He loves it out here. The space, the animals, the freedom. He's good at surviving in the wilderness. Better than most adults I know. He's a good kid, Maya said. You've done a great job with him considering everything. I don't know about that, Jack said. Half the time I feel like I'm failing him. I'm not a teacher. I don't know how to help him process his grief properly. I just do the best I can and hope it's enough. That's all any parent can do, Maya said. She stood up to go check on Tommy, but Jack's voice stopped her again. Maya, can I ask you something? Sure. Why did you become a nurse? The question caught her off guard. I wanted to help people, she said after a moment. My grandmother was sick when I was a teenager. Cancer. I watched the nurses take care of her, how gentle they were, how much comfort they provided. I thought that's what I wanted to do with my life. Make a difference. Save people. And do you? Jack asked. Make a difference? Sometimes, Maya said. Not always. There are days when nothing you do is enough. Days when people die anyway and you wonder why you even try. But then there are other days when you pull someone through. When you see them walk out of the hospital and hug their family and you think maybe it's worth it. Maybe all the hard days are worth that one moment. Rachel would have liked you, Jack said suddenly. She always respected people who dedicated their lives to helping others. She was a teacher. Elementary school. She loved those kids like they were her own. After she died, her students made cards for Tommy. Hundreds of them. We still have them all. Maya felt tears prick her eyes again. She sounds like she was a special person. She was, Jack said. The best person I ever knew. I don't think I'll ever stop missing her. You shouldn't stop, Maya said. Missing her means she mattered. It means the love you had was real. That's not something to get over. That's something to carry with you. Jack looked at her for a long moment and something shifted in his expression. Understanding, maybe. Or recognition. You've lost someone too. That's why you ran to the mountains. It wasn't just about the accident. It wasn't a question, but Maya answered anyway. My fiancé, 5 years ago. He was a firefighter, died in a building collapse. One day we were planning our wedding and the next day he was just gone. I couldn't stay in the city after that. Too many memories. Too many places we'd been together. So I took a traveling nurse job, moved around for a while, and eventually ended up here. I'm sorry, Jack said. Me too, Maya said. But like you said, the missing means it mattered. Daniel was a good man. He deserves to be missed. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Two people who understood each other's pain without needing to explain it. Then Tommy's voice called from outside, excited about something he'd found. Maya went to the window and saw the boy crouched in the snow, examining tracks. She grabbed her coat and went out to join him. The cold air hit her face like a slap, clearing her head. Look, Tommy said, pointing at the tracks. Deer, a big one. And these smaller ones are probably rabbits. Oh, and see this? That's a fox. Dad taught me how to tell them all apart. That's impressive, Maya said. You really know your stuff. Dad says if you're going to live in the mountains, you have to understand the mountains. You have to know what animals are around, what plants are safe to eat, how to find water, all of it. He says the wilderness will take care of you if you respect it. Your dad's right, Maya said. The wilderness can be harsh, but it can also be healing. They spent the next hour outside, Tommy showing her around and pointing out different things. His knowledge was genuinely impressive for a kid his age. Jack had clearly taken his education seriously, even if it wasn't traditional schooling. But Maya also noticed things that worried her. Tommy was thin, too thin for a growing boy. His coat was worn and patched in several places. His boots were too small, his toes probably cramped inside them. They were surviving up here, but just barely. Jack was doing his best, but his best might not be enough. When they came back inside, both of them red-cheeked and cold, Maya made hot chocolate. Tommy drank his eagerly while telling his father about everything they'd seen. Jack listened with genuine interest, asking questions and adding his own observations. Watching them together, Maya felt something shift inside her chest. These two had been through hell. They'd lost someone they loved and retreated from the world to lick their wounds. They'd built a life that was safe but isolated. They had each other, but they didn't have anyone else, and neither did she. She'd been telling herself for 2 years that she was fine alone, that she didn't need people, that solitude was healing. But maybe she'd been wrong. Maybe what she needed was right here in front of her. Not romance or replacement, but connection, understanding, a reason to stop hiding. That evening, after Tommy had fallen asleep in the chair again, Maya found herself sitting on the edge of Jack's bed talking. They talked about Rachel and Daniel, about grief and loss and the impossible weight of moving forward. They talked about guilt and regret and all the what-ifs that haunted them both. Do you think things happen for a reason? Jack asked suddenly. Like fate or destiny or whatever you want to call it? Maya thought about it. I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe things just happen, and we try to find meaning in them afterward because the alternative is too scary. Random chaos with no purpose. You being the one to find us, Jack said. Out of everyone who could have been on that road, it was you. The same person who tried to save Rachel. What are the odds of that? Astronomical, Maya admitted. But that doesn't mean it means something. It could just be coincidence. Or, Jack said, it could be Rachel, sending us to you, making sure Tommy ended up with someone who could help us, someone who understands. Maya wanted to dismiss it as wishful thinking, but she couldn't quite manage it. You really believe that? I don't know what I believe anymore, Jack said honestly. But I know being here talking to you, it's the first time in 2 years I've felt like maybe things could be okay again. Like maybe there's a future that doesn't just involve surviving day to day. What would that future look like? Maya asked quietly. Jack met her eyes. I don't know yet, but I think I'd like to find out. The moment hung between them, full of possibility and fear in equal measure. Then Tommy stirred in his sleep, mumbling something about rabbits, and the spell broke. Maya stood up, suddenly aware of how close they'd been sitting. You should rest, she said. You're still healing. Maya, Jack said as she reached the door. Thank you. For everything. For stopping that night. For taking us in. For letting us tell our story. For sharing yours. It means more than you know. You don't have to keep thanking me, Maya said. Yeah, Jack said with a small smile. I do. Maya went to the living room and lay down on the couch, but sleep didn't come easily. Her mind was racing, thinking about everything that had happened, everything that had been said. 2 days ago, these people had been strangers. Now they felt like something else entirely, something important. She thought about the promise she'd made to Rachel. Take care of Tommy, make sure he's okay. She hadn't kept that promise then, hadn't followed through, but maybe she'd been given a second chance. Maybe fate or coincidence or whatever you wanted to call it had dropped them into her life for a reason. Or maybe she was overthinking it all. Maybe in a few days Jack would be well enough to travel, and they'd go back to their cabin in the mountains and she'd go back to her solitary life, and this would just be a strange story they'd all remember. But somehow, Maya didn't think that's how this was going to end. Something had started here in this cabin, something that felt bigger than all of them, and she had no idea where it would lead. Maya woke up to the sound of coughing. It was still dark outside, probably around 4 in the morning. She sat up quickly, her nurse instincts immediately alert. The coughing was coming from the bedroom, harsh and wet sounding. Not Jack. Tommy. She rushed to the bedroom and flipped on the small lamp. Jack was already awake, leaning over as much as his broken leg would allow, trying to reach Tommy. The boy was curled up in the chair, coughing so hard his whole body shook with it. How long has he been like this? Maya asked, going straight to Tommy and placing her hand on his forehead.